the lit RPG novel that I'm writing.
Does it involve an orc?
It does not. It doesn't involve any sexual activity at all.
Okay.
But
because I don't think there's enough orc porn in the world. So get on that, internet.
Wow.
Whole new market.
Wow. Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 501 of the Dead Robot Society. We are on our way to episode 1000.
On our way to episode 1000?
Or maybe we're just walking back to episode 0. I'm not really sure how this is working out.
Look, if you figure out how to go backwards in time, I would like to go back to about 35, because I think it's the optimum age for a human being to be. Because you figured out most of the things you thought you knew when you were a teenager. That's all done, and you still have some of your real life left before you get old and cranky, which I think happened to you at 20.
20. I was a great guy.
You were a great guy.
I didn't care about the future at age 20. I think 30 might have been better for me.
I'm thinking 35 was optimum. My 20s, no. I don't want to meet that person.
Why can't I physically be 21 and mentally 53? Why can't that happen?
Yeah, if only that would work that way, because it would be completely freaking awesome.
It needs to be like a science fiction story where you grow a new clone of your own body without a brain so you can be transplanted every 20, 30 years.
Peter F. Hamilton, Richard K. Morgan.
Oh, no, I know it's been done. I absolutely do know it's been done.
Yeah, you just want it done now. And
that's right. Get started.
In the here and now. I see how this works. So what's up, man?
Well, it's been an exciting week for me. Got to spend from Sunday through Wednesday in the hospital.
Which is why we did not have a show last week. Yeah. It's all your fault.
It's all my vet's fault. It's actually, I'll blame it on the cat. The vet had no idea.
All right. Blame it on the cat.
We took Sheba in to have her looked at. Just a normal checkup. And she is one of those cats that has normally dirty ears. So the vet wanted to take a peek in there. And I'm holding the cat on the table. And he's taking that visual probe and sticking in the ears and taking a look around there. And the cat just bit me. Cat bit me on my thumb, which by the end of the day, it was completely swollen up. Went to the urgent care a couple of hours after it happened. Got oral antibiotics. They weren't up to the task. Had to check into the hospital and get some IV antibiotics for 3 days before it retreated back down to something normal. It turns out that the cat had an ear infection that nobody was aware of. So when he stuck that probe into her ear, it probably hurt like the dickens.
So you're supposed to look in the cat's ears every once in a while, Terry.
Yep, apparently so.
But you have too many ears to look at. You need like a rotating group of ear inspectors in your house now.
Mm-hmm. That's what I need. Well, after that pretty well disrupted my plans to finish the Empire book on schedule. I had to go ahead, once I could write again, once I could type again, and write the short story that's due at the end of this month for an anthology. It's now done. Finish that today. So I can start writing the Empire book tomorrow. I've only got 15 to 20,000 words left in this story, unless something, well, seriously drastic happens that I wasn't foreseeing. Then I might be able to make that. Otherwise, it may drag on a little bit longer. I'm not going to end it prematurely. It's going to be as long as it needs to be. I'm pleased with the story that I've written so far. If it takes a little bit longer than I usually take to get to the ending, I'm okay with that.
Okay. All right. I get it. So nothing else has been going on. You haven't blown up the world or anything yet?
Not yet. Maybe later.
Maybe later.
What about you? What have you been up to this week off?
Week off my ass. Working on the evolution, which I guess is now at 27,000. And if I ever get this goddamn recording done, I thought I was finished recording Friday, And it turns out that about 25% of my audio is effed.
What happened?
One of the cats must have knocked my mixer and twisted one of the knobs.
Oh, that
And
sucks.
my mic was too preamped, and so there's all these crackles and clicks.
Damn it.
Yeah, so I have to go back and re-record that. So I managed to salvage some of it, but I have to, re-record basically 25% of the book.
Ouch.
Yeah, so I'm beyond pissed, and yeah, it's not happy times at Shape Hall. But the books are going well, I think. We'll find out when I get there. But yeah, the Black Four, I've got all the bullshit set up. Everybody's met everybody. Now it's time to get down to business, and then we'll see who's dessert.
Everyone is dessert.
We'll see who walks away from it.
Did you see that the article I sent you today, or maybe it was last night?
Did you see that thing I sent you? Which one? You sent so many the last.
The
2
one
days.
with the black ominous looking coffin sarcophagus that was found buried somewhere. I'm sure that's going to end well for humanity.
I've seen that movie. It was a really shitty horror movie, but I still wouldn't open that damn thing. I
keep finding these things and going, this would make a great Paul story. He could pervert this like nobody's business.
Oh yeah, I mean, basically, it's sort of what Lamash 2 is. So yeah, I've kind of written that story already, and had a good time with it. But yes, every time they find something new in the ocean, or they find something new archaeological, or they dig up some core sample from Antarctica and are freaked out about it, I'm always like, yeah, I've written that book in my head 1,000 times, seen that movie, read that book. How can I take that and make it different? Because now I'm really excited about this. So yeah, the news articles, I mean, the actual science ones, it used to be you finding a lot of this stuff in like National Enquirer or whatnot, but now it's like there's so many different sources of information. You find out that there's actually this is going on. This is actually a thing. And then it just blows your mind. It's like when they discovered there's new trails in the Amazon they just found because of satellite technology, and now it's like an entire city they have to explore if they can get to it. And that's real life. So yeah, there's plenty of books and stories that are coming from articles like that. But I hate it when you mention my name with something like that. People are going to think that I have like a death fetish.
I totally wouldn't think they'd think that at all.
You don't think so?
No.
They might think I write monster books.
It's they might think you write monster books. Sure, that's the intent.
Yeah, nothing could go wrong with that. So if I can finish this freaking audiobook this week, which I don't think is going to happen, well, actually I might be able to do it this weekend, then I will be in much better shape and a much happier person, and hopefully able to just bang out on TB4, because I want to get that book done this month.
By the time you're done with it, you'll realize the story's not over.
Well, that's why I already planned for book 5.
There you go.
I already planned. When you get to the
end of book 5, you'll find there's a book 6.
Shut up, Terry. Anyway, so that's basically where things are going and moving.
Awesome. It sounds like it's productive. I'm sorry you've had audio trouble. That really sucks. You need like a plastic cover to put over your mixing board.
Yeah, I've taken pictures of the settings now, and I check it. I do sample audio before I start a recording session.
It's nothing like being burned once to check for one specific type of problem again before it happens.
Yeah, this happened like 7 years ago, 6 or 7 years ago, and it hasn't happened since, so I stopped checking for it. Yeah, pretty much. So I've changed my recording regimen, how I do things.
Yeah, I suppose at least when I was recording stuff that I wanted to do things with, I would check it. I would spot sample it to make sure that things were sounding good after every recording session.
Part of it was I didn't have my hearing aids in, so I didn't hear it.
Ouch.
Yeah. Anyway. Yeah, welcome to my world. So, yeah, working on it.
Well, good luck, man. Just keep rocking that sucker.
Thank you.
it's hard to know how to characterize this particular episode. I think the title you came up with says it all.
Your questions are denials.
Exactly so. So let's start denying everything now, right now. So folks, today we're going to go ahead and talk about, your questions and our denials. You ask questions and we deny ever having anything to do with it or knowing anything about it.
Yeah, we deny knowing anything about it. And spoiler alert, we are not experts in anything.
Yeah, that little warning you get, I am not an attorney, accountant / whatever.
I'm not even.
I'm not all of those. We're none of those things.
I am not even a fully licensed human being. So let's get on with this.
I think that would be an interesting story to write. What if you had to be licensed to be a human being?
Ooh. Well, break out your dystopia, readers.
So what would the unlicensed humans be?
Slave
labor?
I don't know. Food?
Wow. Soylent Green, here we come.
Not even that, man. They live with you for a while and you find out if you like the taste of their flesh. No, that's still not right. I almost said the taste of their meat. So, yeah. Anyway.
That's a totally different book.
Yes, it is. Continue.
Yes, like Paul said, we're talking slash fic today. Maybe
not. No, I did not say that. You're hosting this mess, and we are certainly not doing slash fic.
Yeah. We've got some questions that readers have asked, Paul, and I think that we should address those before you take us anywhere further off the rails.
Yeah, because it's always my fault. My fault.
I'll let the facts speak for themselves.
So, Senor Noble said, how about a discussion on the beats of a good story? How to avoid being formulaic while still managing to give your story a rhythm that is pleasing to the quote-unquote ear?
I guess it really depends on what your definition of formulaic is.
In the context of structure, feeling, fulfilling current expectations.
I happen to believe story beats isn't formulaic. I happen to believe that, like the beats you have of telling a romance story, they aren't formulaic. They're just a structure that you tell your story with. And really, your beats in a story depends on the genre you're writing it in. It's going to be different for everyone.
Yeah, and I would also say that if you're writing a series, you may fall into a formula with those same story beats. And that's also expectations of the reader to a certain degree if they're in a series.
So when you're writing horror, what kind of story beats are we looking at here? You've got to introduce the characters in their normal lives, so to speak, then have the ominous events begin occurring, and then everything goes to shit, and the struggle for survival begins.
And that is one type of horror story. That's one type of horror story. The other horror stories, it depends, because you've got action horror, sci-fi horror, everything else. Are you trying to gross people out? Are you trying to scare the shit out of them? Are you trying to make them nervous Nellies and turn it into a page turner? Or do you make it one where they're afraid to turn the next page?
Yeah, and all of them are different.
And all of them are
all different.
The beats are all very, very different. I saw this meme. I remember this meme, and probably most of you have seen it, that described the structure of every story from House, every episode of House. Okay. And if you've ever seen House, this is how every episode works. Warm open with patient in weird situation getting hurt. Then the credits. Enter House or one of his staff talking to person or about person or some other issue, personal issue about the hospital. They get dragged into the case. House makes up some crazy shit that includes lupus, sends those folks out again. They go and ask the stupid questions. House goes and causes political trouble for the administration, comes back, tells the interns, whatever, that They're stupid. They need to go away. Did you do the thing? Yeah, I did the thing. Only idiots would do that thing. Sends them away again. House is wrong 2 more times. Repeat the cycle. House is finally right. End story. So story beats depend on what you're doing. I have a formula that is not a formula that is a formula. In other words,
commit, damn it.
If go look at the Black series, all 3 books have a certain way of doing things, except for Outbreak, because where Outbreak starts is pretty much in the midst of the crazy already going on to a certain extent. We have very little time to meet the characters before all hell breaks loose, and then we get to know about them during what they're going through. And Derelict is kind of that way too. Although I did my more normal approach of easing you in to the characters, the world, everything else, giving you time to get your footing, and then take you off to where we need to go. And that's to make you get to spend time with the characters and hopefully care about them before I start doing the horrible things to them. Because if you don't care about a character, then nobody's going to give a shit what you're doing to them. So that's my formula, is to introduce the characters at the very beginning, introduce the threat, but not introduce it. It's very, very subtle. And the characters may not even realize it, but the audience knows something's going on. And you just keep going and slowly unravel that. And then you hit the pack of explosives and boom. That's called the slow burn. It's what I like to write.
If you look at something like detective fiction, let's pick Law and Order, for example.
Oh, God.
Whichever version you're going to have of Law and Order, you have the opening scene where somebody's life is completely disrupted because they find a body or they get attacked or they're sexually assaulted or whatever that particular version of Law and Order is dealing with. Then you break for the credits. Then you come back and the investigators start looking. They find the first person that looks like they could be guilty of everything. It's pointing towards that person. They go talk to them, but their alibi holds. They can't do it. So then they dig into the person's life and they start finding everybody hated them. Everybody wanted them dead. Whatever else it is, they have to start looking at the various people and crossing them off the list until almost by happenstance, they'll get that one clue that leads them to the right person. And then they have to trap them into revealing themselves and arrest them.
Columbo, murder occurs.
Oh, I just got this one question.
We meet murderer. We see them kill the person. We see them do their cover up. And then enters Columbo. Bumbles around, asks some stupid questions. Some people aren't even involved. Finally meets the killer. And within 2 minutes knows that guy's the killer or that person's the killer and spends the rest of the episode trying to prove it. That's a Columbo mystery.
You ever watch Elementary?
I don't think I ever. No, I never watched that. I
was watching an episode last night, and pretty much he never bumbles around asking questions, but he was looking for a serial killer, and he had a suspicion who it was, and he's having this conversation with the guy, and he walks out and meets Watson and says, "It's him. He's the serial killer." Nothing in that conversation led anybody to believe that this was the serial killer. But there you are. He has had the revelation.
Yep.
Only he just can't prove it.
Yep. That's a big part of detective fiction, is them figuring out who did it and then trying to find a way to prove it.
And this episode, unlike a lot of other ones with these type of episodic shows, he did not end up proving it. The person that is the serial killer calls him at the end of the episode on a bus to God only knows where, saying, you're not feeling up to this little confrontation we're having because of the personal issues you're having. So I'm going to go away for a while and then I'll come back.
Oh, that's the writers trying to hang on for another season.
Actually, I kind of think this is a good one, because in this particular version of Sherlock Holmes, he's trying to get treatment for his heroin addiction that he had at the beginning of this. It's a continuing struggle that occasionally raises its head during this show. And the serial killer is also in the anonymous program that he is in, whatever it is. I can't remember what the anonymous program is for that sort of thing. But something that Sherlock had said got him to kick heroin and get back to serial killing because that's his job. And he needed to kick the drug habit to do that. And he realized that it was his opportunity to give back to Sherlock Holmes by revealing himself as a serial killer and making the challenge to capture him. So it's a very convoluted plot, and I like it. There's a lot of motivation in this where you're looking at this going, that's twisted enough to where no one would have ever thought of something like that, and I could see it happening.
That's the really terrifying part. Is some of these plots that we write, we think are so outlandish. It was like the folks who wrote the show Arliss, Robert Wool and his crew. I don't know if you ever saw that. It's about a sports super agent. And
no, I never saw it.
Oh, great show. Great show. Fantastic show. They were interviewing him one time and he was like, how do you do you think the stories you tell on the series are too outlandish to be real? And he looks at him and he goes, are you kidding? Every time we're in the writer's room, we got a story ready to go. Something else happens out there in the sports world that we just were like, why didn't we think of that? And somebody goes, we did. We said it was impossible to happen. And it happened.
Yeah, that happens a lot.
So, if
truth is stranger than fiction.
If it sounds really odd and nobody would ever do that, you just have to think about the proper motivations to make somebody do it.
And sometimes when you're telling stories, you can have in mind real world events and go, I can't sell this to the reader. It's too outlandish. They would never buy it, even though it really happened.
Look, if you think about it, look at it from somebody from old America. The idea that an actor would ever get elected was pretty outlandish. The idea that a reality TV star would get elected was pretty damned outlandish. And for some people, the idea a black president would ever happen was really outlandish.
Given enough time, just about any set of circumstances has happened in the real world or will happen. Nothing that you tell is probably going to be too outrageous for it to be possible. But selling the majority of the audience on the likelihood of something, you can pick and type shot out of truth and try to sell it to fiction and have them turn it down because it's not believable.
Yeah, absolutely. And in some cases, you're like, yeah, that's never going to happen.
There have been people that have been struck by lightning multiple times.
Yep.
And so you're sitting there going, I can't even hardly sell, being struck by lightning once, twice.
And yet, so I do think the story beats to turn. I mean, if you go look at romance, what are the romance beats, Harry?
Let's see. The romance beats that I would say is you have the introduction of the characters, then the characters' motivations collide. One wants one thing, one wants the other thing. They come into strife because they want to come out. They see each other as adversaries for whatever their goal is. And the more they strive against one another, that secret feelings that they have for the other one starts intruding upon their relationship until it becomes all consuming and they have to struggle to find a way to balance their worlds together. And then happily ever after they go. There are other romance beats. There are other types of romance stories that
that's the stereotypical one.
But that's the stereotypical one.
Stereotypical quest. Stereotypical quest. Characters gather. They are given the quest by some all-knowing, all-person, whatever. Go out there, there's in-party fighting, party gets separated, do different things, come back together, accomplish quest, bad guy foiled, done.
That sounds a lot like this season of The Magicians.
Wow.
Except at the end of it, they accomplish their goal and are betrayed from within and hosed over.
Now, see, that's how you break the stereotype. Or quest happens, characters gather, characters go out, and half of them get killed.
Lord of the Rings, anyone?
Yeah, pretty much. The stereotypical fantasy hero quest pretty much runs like that first one. That's how it runs. How do you break that? Well, that's the formula. There are readers who are going to expect that formula. They're going to want that formula. Those are the kind of books they want to read.
I think that no matter what genre you're writing in, if you just look at raising the stakes for the character, from wherever you introduce that person, set the goals, have them have their attempts at success and their failures, and keep raising the stakes as it goes along till you get to the crescendo of the all or nothing moment at the end. Whatever the genre is, I think that you'll be successful. You don't have to be bound by the formulaic beats that everyone else uses. Tell the story that you want to tell. Just don't make it easy. Don't give the characters what they're looking for. Deny them.
Deny. Your job as God is to deny. Just like the real one, if it exists. So,
wow. Did we go metaphysical there?
Oh, I'm going to get so metaphysical, baby. All right. So, beats, I think if you go read 3 novels in a genre, you will pick up the common beats of most kinds of stories in that genre. I said most. I don't want to see any cranky memes. The only generalization I'm going to say is there is that type of story that has those beats, and there are dozens of books that follow exactly the same formula.
And your book will not be formulaic if you make it individually yours.
Correct.
If you make the characters their own people and funnel the impressions of this world and their opinions about it through their unique lens and tell it in your voice, you will not have the same story anyone else is writing.
Yeah, so don't worry about it. Let's see. What else? Here we go. Well, this is going to be like 3 comments from Terry. I think they're all going to be don't. How to make unhappy endings still satisfying, besides just killing everyone.
That's more of a Paul question, isn't it?
Yes, but your answer, Mr. Host.
How to make an unhappy ending satisfying. Can't be done.
Can't be done?
Not for a reader like me. Can't be done.
Not for a reader like you.
An unhappy ending for me as a reader is always going to be a huge letdown and disappointment, because when I read, I want to see happiness of one form or another, success, triumph over evil, the romance workout. For me, it can't be done. That does not to say that it can't be done for everyone, but I don't have the mental insight of how to write that story, because when it comes down to it, as writers, we write for ourselves. We write the stories that please us. I could never write a story that ends that way or appreciate it, because that's not how I work. That's not how my brain works. That's not how any of this works.
Huh. We would sort of have to, and we would sort of have to agree on what a happy ending is. A happy ending
depends on if we're at a massage parlor or in the rest of the world.
If it's a fairy tale style ending where we all ride off under the sunset, all problems are caused and nobody gets, bothered by anything at all, that's not a story I'm going to read. That's not a story I want to read. I have absolutely no interest in it at all. There's no stakes. None. In the books that I write, somebody has to, hopefully a character for that matter, has to suffer a loss. You can't let them win all the time. It will get boring. There has to be losses. So the question is, at the end of it all, did they lose more than they gained? And what was the price? And even if they win, what was the price? Because there has to be a price.
If you have a story where it ends with, say, somebody is trying to save the world in whatever format this is, and they end up succeeding in saving the world, but only at great personal cost, where they've lost everything, that would be an unhappy story for me, but it still would be a successful one.
Yeah. And that's what I'm getting at. Closet Treats pissed off a lot of people because the main character suffers a significant loss at the end in more ways than one. And some people got really upset about that. And the same thing with Tattoo, because there's some stuff I do in there that makes it into a quote unquote happy ending. The happy ending for these characters, they fucking survived. And
sometimes survival is failure.
and sometimes survival is failure. That is correct. I like the stories where we're going to see, if you're a perfect example, if I'm writing a war story, I can't have people with all these explosions and shooting at each other and nobody getting hurt. No one getting hurt. This is not a freaking episode of G.I. Joe. It's just not that way. So the stories I write are going to have wartime wounds, and some of the characters that you like are going to get taken out because that's life. So
You're more of a Sergeant Rock kind of guy.
I just like to have that kind of realism in there, that shit happens. Sometimes,
have you ever read Sergeant Rock?
No, I have not.
It's pretty much like that.
It's a comic book, right?
It is comic book. It's one from when I was a kid. Okay. I remember seeing it. It was definitely it was a World War II comic, and it was people got shot all over the place. It was not your favorite. It was not your fun and games kind of comic book. People got mowed down by machine gun nests and blown up by grenades.
Okay. Well, see, I would do that to one of the major characters. I would absolutely do it. Because if that's what the story needs, that's where it's going to go. Nobody's safe.
For me, war is more like Black Sheep Squadron, the TV show.
Terry doesn't want to get his hands dirty. That's not the
kind of story I like. So I'm more about the characters being, quirky rather than having them get their friends all blown to pieces.
I'm a big believer in quote unquote unhappy endings. I'm a big believer in it. And in the sense that there has to be loss. And like I said, usually when I speak about unhappy or happy endings, I'm talking about fairy tales. The remake, the Disney kind of bullshit is what I'm thinking of. That just doesn't happen. There needs to be, for me to really enjoy a story, there's got to be some damage done. You can't win it all. It's not interesting if you always win. It's just not interesting because it means there's no stakes. It's like that Twilight episode where the guy dies and thinks he's in heaven, but he's actually in hell because anything he wants, he gets.
Yeah, that was a rough one.
Yeah, it's a really rough one. Really, really rough one. Who said you were in heaven? Great episode if you can find it. Spoilers, too late. It's been out for 50 years. If you haven't seen it yet, screw you. Has it been 50 years?
Gosh, if it's not been 50 years, I think it's probably been 50 years.
Wow, that is just terrifying. Anyway, so to make them still satisfying, you have to have some sort of closure, but the rule is always the same. Don't ever completely close yourself out. So there. And I don't kill everybody in a book, damn it.
Oh, you kill everyone.
I do not kill everyone. So this is not the way it works. Okay. Ooh. This will be interesting. Panel discussion on how to portray religion in fiction. Atheism, monotheism, polytheism, and perhaps one of the philosophical naturalistic ones represented, how it's done right, how it's done wrong, straw men to avoid diversity of characters within religions, etc.
The way to do it right is it has to be an integral part of the story, and it can't be preachy. You can't be, as the author, nagging at the reader about morality issues. It has to be something that's relevant to the characters, that is relevant to the setting, the world that they're in, and it just has to flow and be part of it. Something that Jim Butcher said recently about politics is you can be as political as you want as an author, as long as you're more entertaining. And that's true of using religion in fiction as well. You can have religion, but it can't be more so than the entertainment of the story. The story must be all. It has to be entertaining.
I like to go back to Douglas Adams.
Oh, shit.
Oh, yeah. Because of all the ways he portrayed religions in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. He was absolutely brutal but it wasn't, and he took shots at everything. I mean, it didn't matter. He took shots at everything. So, but it wasn't an integral part. It was just this dressing on the side of the world and everything else. If your story is about the religious aspects of these people or whatever else and how they come into conflict, then it needs to be even-handed, or else it's going to come off preaching one way or the other. So I would say if you've got a character who's making comments about these things, you need to make sure it doesn't turn into, yeah, this person who has these hateful ideas about these other religions is right, and that's the only one. Okay, whatever. You can do that. I won't read it. But the bottom line is you have to, I think this is an area that has to be done kind of carefully. I had one reader, okay, in the Garaga stories, I have a Garaga story where the Jews or a Jewish character is the hero of the story. On the Damon side, I have a story where the Jews are the bad guys. And it basically is casting religions against each other. And I'm not making a comment about race or religion or anything else. It's just for the times of what I wanted to do and how I wanted to relate something back. But the stories are filtered through those characters' eyes. Therefore, you're going to have Herodot making comments about, polytheism in Egypt because he's Jewish. And you're going to have a child of Garaga making comments about Jehovah. It's just the way it is. It's going to happen. And those are pieces in the background, maybe with occasional comments or whatever else. But that it was important to address it. It wasn't important to make it a huge issue. It was just dressing in the background. So, and for the record,
something to remember about religion is that paradoxically, religion isn't about God so much as it is about human beings.
So much as it is about, no, never mind. Continue.
What, you didn't get that?
No, I got it.
It's organized religion is something that is interpreted by man. And this may touch a nerve for some people. But when you're telling a story, you're not telling a story about God. You're telling about an institution of man and how those are worked. For example, David Weber has a series he called the Safehold series. And in it, religion plays a huge role in a very negative sense in many ways. It's a made-up religion because of the setting of the story. But there are decent people that are members of this religion, and there are bad people that are members of this religion.
Not everyone is one way or another.
And the story really isn't so much about the religion, but about the people executing the religion. And if you keep your story, your religion in your stories about the people, you're probably going to do better than if you talk about the religion.
I would say
as an isolated institution.
That sounds like a really good sci-fi. One of the literary ones, I would say, if we can consider it literary, is The Chosen, which is a book about basically two Jewish families growing up in America during Hitler's reign and then the following after, including the Exodus. That's the backdrop. That's not what the story is about. That's the backdrop, because it more or less becomes this tragic romance kind of thing that ultimately sort of works out. And it's really about tradition meeting culture and modernity and the past coming together and clashing and hitting one another with complete vitriol in some cases. And it's important to, I like to see stories like that because they do pit those things together without making a judgment. It's simply, here are the facts, ma'am, kind of a deal. And I think that's a much better way to handle it than most of the attempts that I've seen.
Life is messy, so is religion. Nothing is an ivory tower institution. It's all about the execution. It's all about people's prejudices, people's biases, people's beliefs. Those color everything from religion to politics to anything that you want to talk about that's a human being. If you focus on whatever religion or multiplicity of religions you have, so long as you keep it grounded in the people that hold these religions and keep it true to the people, you'll succeed.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think it's just important to handle issues like that as deftly as possible.
Now that I'm not sure. What do you mean by deftly?
If I'm writing a parody, I will handle it poorly on purpose. This goes back to your tongue-in-cheek stuff about the, well, we talked about in the pre-show, which I cut out. Like that idea, you're basically handling it badly on purpose.
That's true.
And not trying to make it a flag or a stick in the sand.
Yeah, I'm using it for what it is.
Right.
And I'm going to have real people have real reactions to it. And it's going to have consequences that reverberate through the story.
But it's not the story.
It's not the story. It's an element of the story, and it's going to color the characters that are in the story, but it's not going to be who they are. It's going to be one of the things that they strive against.
Yeah. So look, that's what I meant by deftly.
Okay, I'll buy that.
I mean, you can write whatever you like, and you'll find an audience probably, but that's not a book that interests me at all. Let's see. When the focus is on the religion instead of the characters. I guess we got time for one more.
It's because you see one you like. Just admit it.
Huh. Okay, Mel says, I've noticed the DRS has become very sci-fi heavy. And I've noticed...
Because we both write sci-fi. I wonder why this happened.
And I've noticed just a hint, a spritz of upturned nosery toward the fantasy genre. That would be my fault.
Really? I can't recall. Maybe I can recall having heard something like that before.
Now, I do want to say something. Terry has an unhealthy view of horror and slams it every chance he gets.
True.
So,
but nobody blames me. There's no blame of Terry for how he feels.
That's fucked. Anyway, the bottom line is that's because that's his preference. If fantasy gets the occasional nail, it's because it's not my preference. And as I said before, it's not nosery. I think there are great fantasy books out there. I'm just not interested in sword and sorcery. I'm just not. It's not my thing. I'm just not into it. So I can't really speak to it all that well. I've read a couple of fantasy books because of Terry in the past couple of years. I've read a few and they were okay, but still not something that I'm going to chase down and say, I have to get this next thing.
I am totally going to make you beta read my lit RPG.
And I probably will, because it will be something new and awful that I have not tried before. So genre preferences. Terry won't touch anything literary. I'm talking for Terry here.
It's not a genre.
Terry won't.
I reject literary fiction as a genre because they are the anti-genre.
Terry won't read horror. I don't read romance. I don't read much fantasy. I don't have a nose upturned. I like the Nora Roberts novel I read. It was all right. I just got distracted by the terrible execution of the horror elements she was trying to pull off. But the other parts of the story were good. Do what?
Was that year one?
Year one what?
Which Nora Roberts book was it?
The one with the serial killer.
Totally don't remember it, but okay.
It
could be any number of the ones she's written. She actually wrote a post-apocalyptic one with supernatural horror in it called Year One.
Oh, okay.
And that's why I asked that.
Did it do well?
It's Year One. Apparently it did. The sequel's coming out. She killed off... It's hard to believe, but Nora Roberts killed off 99% of the human population.
Wow. Oh, are the rest of them just the good-looking people, or... Sorry. Anyway.
Maybe you want to go ahead and, check that one out, because it was definitely way outside of what she normally writes. And it definitely was not a romance story.
I haven't read a Western in forever. but I do like stories set in that time period, as long as they're not the formulaic kind of stuff. But you know, Zane Grey is Zane Grey, 50 billion books, and all of them really good, and
Spaghetti
all the
Western,
same,
baby.
and they're all the same story, which can apply to sci-fi as well, and whatever else. The thriller genre, I think Terry and I both like that. Do you like westerns, Terry?
It's been a long time since I've read one. I don't have anything against them, but there's just so little time. I don't read them because that's not the thing that attracts me the most. I don't hate them. I don't love them.
Okay. There's just certain books that I don't read. I don't read a lot of military books. I don't really read what used to be called men's adventure books. I don't really read those at all.
So you're not a Clive Cussler fan?
No. No.
Dirk Pitt is very disappointed in you.
I'm sure he is. I don't what else don't I read? I don't read a lot of urban fantasy. Oh my god. I don't read a lot of urban.
You know, urban fantasy is a totally different thing. Wow, look at that dragon.
Dude, the Hobbit, man. Check out his furry feet. My sword is so big. No. The urban fantasy. I don't read much of that these days. I don't read lit RPG, although Terry's trying to change that apparently. What else don't you really read, Terry?
I don't know because I don't read it.
Are there any major genres?
That's actually an honest statement. Basically, I read mysteries, I read thrillers, I read science fiction, I read urban fantasy, I read some paranormal romance, I read regular romance. That's lit RPG. That's pretty much the extent of where I'm reading at right now. Anything outside that pond, I'm not reading it.
Okay, fair enough.
Not because I'm excluding it. It's just not interesting to me right now.
I think it's just a matter of taste. I mean, I don't go. I stopped watching Game of Thrones because it just didn't interest me anymore.
It's just all it is them just killing off more people that you love. That's the whole game of Game of Thrones. Is, oh look, that character's beloved. He must die.
I'm not going to make any comments like that. I just lost interest because all the characters I cared about, except for Tyrion, were pretty much just not important. And actually, if you think about it to a certain degree, there were certain clans that weren't even important because they were annihilated. So what was the point of having them in there to begin with?
Once they lost Jason Momoa, we were done.
Anyway, regardless of that.
Superheroes. There's one that I don't read, not because I hate it, because, well, I've only ever read one superhero book.
Which was?
It was Mur Lafferty's.
Oh, okay. Playing for Keeps?
Yeah.
Yeah. Playing for Keeps, good book. I don't read, I do still read the occasional graphic novel. I still do read the occasional graphic novel. So
I have to get you to read some Archer and Armstrong, or maybe it's Armstrong and Archer. Can't remember.
Okay.
I think you would appreciate it.
I'm just going to look at you like that. All right. So I think that's all the questions we really have time for. If you feel like we're biased against fantasy, we're trying to actually bring a fantasy author on if Terry will get his shit together.
We just have to settle the time frame. I've already sent the email seeing what works for fantasy author to come out and talk to us, and he's already agreed to come on. It's just a matter of working it out the specifics.
Do you think that the show reflects whatever we're writing at the time?
Of course it does, because we're writers talking about our own writing, and our own focus is always on the type of things that we're reading and what we're writing. It's just the way it is. If you want us to talk about something that's outside our normal wheelhouse, by the way, snap your fingers in front of our face and bring our attention around to it, and we will go ahead and do it. But by default, we're going to be focused on the things that we're focusing on.
And which is probably why I've been talking nothing but thriller and suspense and science fiction horror for the past 2.5 years. So, yeah, see earlier episodes of the show where I was writing Flames or working on something along those lines, or Garaga, totally different me. But It doesn't surprise me that reflects it. And I think if a lot of folks on the boards got involved in a discussion about this, we would find that there's a lot of crossover there. And I think there's a lot of people who are married to a genre, and there's a ton of people who aren't.
Genres are just an abstraction of you trying to put me into these little square holes, man.
Yeah, man. Totally, man. Like, fight the man. Don't be the dude.
I refuse to fit into your expectations, man.
Do not label me and categorize me and stuff me in a box, man. I'm my own person.
We should totally write that fiction. We should totally write that character.
I just need like a pretend bong sitting on my desk, but just.
I bet you could buy a vape that looks like a bong.
Oh, I'm sure they're out there. I'm absolutely certain they are out there. Absolutely certain. I can't believe somebody hasn't already done that. So, yeah.
You should start a Kickstarter right now, man.
No, thank you. No, thank you. Anyway.
It would sell out in a day.
It probably would. So I think that's all we have time to answer this week. But we're going to go back through the plot thread. We'll clean some of this stuff up. And if you've got a question, go to Listeners, Dead Robot Society Facebook group, and it's pinned at the top.
Yay!
Yay! And if listeners could point other listeners to episodes we've already done that cover that topic, that'd be great. Anyway, that notwithstanding, Terry, I think we're done.
I think we are too. So, folks, if you've got something you'd like to suggest to us and you're not going to post it on Facebook, go ahead and send us an email at show@deadrobotsociety.com. You can find Paul on Twitter at Paul_E_Cooley. As I mentioned earlier, you can go to the Listeners of the Dead Robot Society Facebook group and find all of the listeners there that are deeply engaged in what we're doing and not afraid to tell us where we're just wandering off course and meandering through life.
Which is good, because we don't know how to do it any other way.
Which is totally good. You can find us on YouTube at youtube.com/DRS podcast. Our Patreon supporters support us at patreon.com/DRS podcast. And of course, we have to thank the folks at podhoster.com who host all of the audio versions of this to torment your ear holes with.
Your e-holes?
So Paul, e-hole, those type of thing. That's a totally different kind of hole.
Keep going.
Keep going. And go ahead and why don't you listen off our $10 supporters, Paul?
Listen off? Man, you're
list off.
You're butchering. And
English is my second language.
And our $10 patrons this week are Sue, you're writing what now? Bayman, JD Barker, Kelson double dealing, Isabel Cushy, Rick, listening this week, deadheading to the Bronx Shaw. Are you still deadheading, Rick? It's been like that for a few weeks, man. Lisa Slack, Sandy Manpants, Cheryl Winters, FKA on Manatsu. What? Now I'm confused. Tracy Bodine, John Kilgallen, Devin Lee, Nathan, can a can as a canner can a can petty, Drew Hydroplane Spin Cycle Bernardi.
Yeah, Chris, he got lucky with that accident. He basically walked away without any real damage. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, stop that. I mean, stop getting into situations like that, not stopping and that. Never mind. Chris Winder, Andre Conde Moraes, DJ Chamberlain, and J.R. Handley.
J.R. Handley, is he still here? I thought everybody was killing him.
I haven't killed him yet.
Uh-oh.
Time. Give me time.
Well, folks, thanks for checking us out. We appreciate it, and we will see you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.